believe that most of us in the room have had to suffer the unfortunate weight and uncomfortable reality of being around some individuals that have an excessive tendency to be never-endingly ungrateful. I think many of us have had to just plain put up with some people who you would think, as you look at the fact that they're still able to get out of bed and put one foot in front of the other, it would give them some recourse in order to pick themselves up and look at life from a better perspective. And yet there are some people that seem to be almost just predisposed to being constantly ungrateful. Do I have a witness in here? And the challenge that is before us, my brothers and my sisters, is that on a day like today, as we look at the week called Thanksgiving, there are some people who you will see on Wednesday night, Thursday morning, or Thursday night, even around the season that's called Thanksgiving, and they will still find some reason to gripe, kick, fuss, and spit and cuss because they have a tendency to be constantly ungrateful. Do I have a witness in here? I think one of the awkwardnesses of this reality is that there's some folks in the room, not only have you been exposed to this kind of reality, but if you look at some of your own behavior, perhaps you can scratch your own head and say, you know what, there have been some days that I'm guilty of being ungrateful myself. Do I have a witness up in here? Maybe I ought to help somebody before you can help somebody else. You may need to take a look in the mirror and ask yourself, have I been as grateful as I should be, given the fact I know people that would trade places with me in a minute. I know folks going through some stuff I would never want to have in my life. Have I been guilty of being ungrateful? I just want some honest folk to give you folk around you a high five and tell them, I'm guilty, I'm guilty. Tell them, if they not giving you a high five, find another place to sit, because you don't need to sit around anybody and that is that arrogant or that egotistical or wants to lie to themselves and to you, because I think all of us at some point have forgotten how blessed we really are. Can I just preach to the honest people in here? Has God done anything in your life that is worthy of any gratitude at all? I'm just talking to some people that know you got a reason to be thankful, and you need not wait till Thursday to shout happy Thanksgiving. Somebody just shout it, happy. Give folks around you a high five. Tell them happy Thanksgiving. Happy. Tell them like you mean it. Tell them happy Thanksgiving. Tell them like you're spiritually schizophrenic. Tell them happy Thanksgiving. You ought to be thankful because you woke up. You ought to be thankful that you're clothed in your right mind. You ought to be thankful that you still got food to eat. You ought to be thankful you still got clothes that fit. You ought to be thankful folks haven't put you out yet. You ought to be thankful that anybody loves you at all and will put up with your insanity. Somebody just say, I'm really grateful. I'm really. See, for Christians, Thanksgiving can't be a day. For Christians, Thanksgiving cannot be a seasonal occasion. For Christians, Thanksgiving must be a daily recognition. For Christians, Thanksgiving, watch this, cannot be based on where you go to eat. It's just based on the fact you can still eat. For Christians, Thanksgiving is not based on what new clothes you have to wear. It's based on the fact that God has clothed you in your right mind and you got anything clean to put on. Watch this. Thanksgiving is not antithesis or anticipation of Black Friday. It's gratefulness for a Red Friday where they hung him high, stretched him wide, right now. Shake your neighbor's hand like you're going to shake it off. And tell them, I'm thankful right now. I'm telling you, don't sit next to anybody that's dead. You need to find somebody that's got something to be thankful for. Watch this, watch this, watch this. See, that's, I wish I had time to preach, but I'm almost done. The text is something that everybody ought to respond to, but it particularly frames the response of the redeemed. Redeemed means those who have, yes, been saved by, yes, the grace of God. And it's those of us who've been saved by the grace of God who come to the house of the Lord. And when you come to the house of the Lord, the psalmist has said in an earlier psalm, enter his gates with thanks. See, y'all missed it. Y'all missed it. See, I thought I had church folk in church. It says, enter his gates with thanksgiving. That means if you were unthankful before you got here, just getting here ought to make you say thank you. I wish I had time to preach this in here. Don't come in here dead. Don't come in here with your head down. Don't come in here complaining. Don't come in here talking about how bad life is. Enter his gates with thanksgiving, because the Lord is too good for you not to be grateful. I'm sorry. Okay, I'm sorry. I apologize, because I see you got some things going on. Make you think you can be ungrateful. You got some things going on. I see. You got some things going on. Tell your neighbor, so do I. So do I. Tell them like you mean it. Tell them, so do I. So do I. Tell your other neighbor, you're not the only one. You're not the only one. Tell your other neighbor, stop feeling sorry for yourself. You're not the only one. You are not the only one. But in order for you to have a daily thanksgiving, first of all, we must be prayerful. Somebody say, be prayerful. Say it like you mean it. Be prayerful. The text says, oh, give thanks unto the Lord. Literally, in the original Hebrew language of the Old Testament, it says, to the Lord give thanks. It's directionally specific, which means that my whole existence starts with the fact that the Lord is the Lord and I'm not the Lord. Watch this. It literally means that everything that happens to me, my answer is with the Lord. Every time I need something, the first place I need to go is to the Lord. Every time I have a situation rise in my life, the first place I need to turn is to the Lord. Watch this. And it literally has to do with the elevated position of the Lord, from which we find the psalmist even writing, I will look to the hills from which cometh my help, because all of my help comes from the Lord. You'll have a much better week if every time something goes wrong, you look up. Every time somebody talk about you, you look up. Every time you feel bad, you look up. Every time they mess with you, you look up. Every time they hurt your feelings, you look up. Every time they look up. I want some folk in the room that know that God is with you to just look up. Touch your neighbor, don't look at them, but say, I'm looking up. Touch him and say, I'm looking up, I'm looking up. See, prayer is not this professional pontification that some so-called sophisticado Christians want to do. Prayer is when you know you need God and you just call him. I wish I had a witness up in here. Prayer is your acknowledgement of your deficiency and your acknowledgement of his all-sufficiency. And you say, God, I can't do it. Can I walk heavy in the hood? The reason why God has allowed this year to be as challenging as it is because God wants you to look up. Ask your neighbor, are you looking up? Are you looking up? Tell your other neighbor, if you didn't look up before today, start looking up now. Tell them, start looking up. Tell them, that's the way you start praying. You start looking up, because something begins to happen. I just need about 4 or 5 prayer warriors in here that know something begins to happen when you start looking up. All of a sudden you see God, and you know God can fix it. God can change it. God can heal it. God can bless it. God can turn it. God can open it. God can lift it. God can move it. God can change it. God can alter it. God can heal it. God can pay it. God.